Hello and what's up, political peeps? Per usual, I am your host, Arav Kapoor, and today I have the honor of welcoming the Senate Majority Leader from the Connecticut State Senate to my show, Senator Bob Duff. Welcome to the GeoPolitical.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, you represent two cities in southwestern Connecticut, both Norwalk and Darien, in Connecticut's 25th State Senate District. Originally in 2002, you ran for the Connecticut House of Representatives for the 137th District. Talk to me about how you got your start into entering public service like that.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's something I've always been very interested in since I was very little. As a matter of fact, I'll just move my camera here a little bit and I'll show you these two letters. Those letters are from former Mayor Bill Collins, who passed away a few years ago. When I was 7 years old, I wrote a letter to the mayor. First letter was about the future of Duffy Field, which is now Veterans Park. I was concerned about it being developed. And the second was about littered Cat Pasture Beach. And actually, he wrote me back, and that was very inspiring to me. And I've always kind of carried that same tradition with me since I got elected too. I always making sure I write people back and spend time with younger people and try to inspire the next generation. I was a political science major in college, interned up on the Hill for former U.S. Senator Chris Dodd, and then worked on a number of campaigns. And then when a gentleman named Alex Knopp, he's a former state representative, he just got elected mayor of Norwalk. He said, "Now we got to get you elected." I was like, "What are you talking about?" I had no idea what he was talking about. And then I ran for the House seat, his old House seat, in a special election in 2002. Won that seat, then had to run again in November. Won that again, and then the Senate seat opened up, and that was quite a bit of a risk to take because the Senate seat represented Norwalk and about 2/3 of Darien had been gerrymandered Republican. And a lot of people said, you may win Norwalk, but you'll lose Darien and you'll never gain Norwalk by enough votes. So I had to take a risk and I put it all on the line. And I figured it's better to be one of 36 than one of 151.
Right.
And so I ran for the Senate, won, and here I am.
And how does that work? I know this was a while ago, but since the Senate and House elections happen in the same year, do you have to not run for your House seat to run for the Senate?
Yes. Yeah. It's for all the marbles.
Right. So, essentially, I really appreciate you joining my show, and this goes back to what you were just saying with the former mayor of Norwalk. Writing back to you, I really appreciate you being open because some people will ignore me and push me off as a young kid, but I really appreciate that. Since you
Pleasure.
got elected in 2005, like we just talked about, to the Connecticut State Senate in this formerly vacant seat, you won in this gerrymandered district. You've worked your way up through Democratic leadership, and you became the Senate Majority Leader in 2015. Talk to me about your journey through Democratic leadership and gaining the trust of your Democratic colleagues numerous
Yeah.
times now.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it's getting elected to the state Senate seat was great. I mean, I was just happy to be in the House because, I saw my name up on the board and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I mean, a kid from Norwalk coming in, I didn't, come from a political dynasty. I don't come from, family that's deeply rooted in politics or anything else. So I, kind of started out, but had a lot of help because you never do it on your own.
Right.
Came into the Senate, and then you look around and you said, I'd like to try something else. I'd like to try leadership because I think I could be a good leader for my colleagues and represent their interests as well. And so I ran for that when that opened up, and thanks to my colleagues for the honor. I've been elected multiple times now to the role of majority leader. Um, and it's quite an honor. I mean, being majority leader means running the floor of the Senate, and deciding what bills run and don't run, and kind of strategizing and things like that. Also making sure I'm representing my colleagues' interests all the time. But it's a lot of it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
Right. So, like you mentioned, as the majority leader, you run what bills come onto the floor, what bills don't, and you manage the rules, etc., of the Senate chamber. Talk to me during a session day. What is your job as the majority leader?
Well, I mean, it actually starts before that. because we have what's called a screening committee. So I don't chair, I used to chair, when I first got in the Senate, I chaired the Housing Committee, then
Mhm.
I chaired the Banking Committee, then I chaired the Energy and Technology Committee. I currently chair the Executive and Legislative Nominations Committee. It's not a policy committee. But what we do is I also chair what's called the Screening Committee. And the Screening Committee is kind of the committee I pick the senators to be on it. We have our staff and the all the other senators will come in and talk to me about what bills are ready, what bills aren't ready, what bills still need amendments, what bills we might need to refer to other committees, things like that. So
Right.
that happens prior to a session day. So then we can find out exactly what our universe is. So if our universe is 20 bills, we know, how do we kind of slot those in? If our universe is 10 bills or 5 bills or 30 bills, then we got to figure that part out. Then we have to have discussions with the Republicans because we have unlimited debate, and we have to find out like what's gonna be a talker, what may not be a talker, and then get people lined up to do their bills, and that's what we do. So it's a lot of kind of plates in the air kind of thing, plates spinning, I should say. Um, but if you like kind of fast paced, if you like things changing all the time, and you like just no 2 days are the same, this is a job for you.
Okay, yeah, that's super interesting, and I have my own aspirations to, in public service and whatnot. But I think that this opportunity to first of all speak to you, but overall what you do is super interesting with all the moving pieces and rallying people. On the floor during a session day. I know you guys have session half a year, usually January to June or February to June, during non-budget years. What is actually a day on the floor like? I got to visit the Senate floor. I took a picture of your seat because I knew that I would be meeting with you. This was a super cool visit to Hartford. So, what is it like to be on the floor?
It's really cool, and you never want to make it seem like it's commonplace because it is really an honor to be there. I mean, you're elected by your colleague, by your constituents to be there. I'm elected by my colleagues to be majority leader, but you never want to forget you represent the people back at home,
Right.
all the people. Elections are elections, but governing is for governing for all. But you still bring up your values and you still bring up the things that you think are important for those days. But I would say again, it starts with the kind of a few days before us to figure out what bills we're going to do. Then we figure out, okay, what's going to be the order? How much of this is going to be talkers? If there's any amendments that come up by the Republicans or we need to do amendments, figuring that in too. Making sure that people aren't nobody's breaking the rules because I've also got to kind of look at that as well.
Mhm.
And then you just kind of hopefully move things along. I mean, the thing about the Senate is the Republicans and the Democrats all caucus. We caucus separately.
Right.
But we know what we're going to do. And generally, we will come out understanding that this bill will pass, this bill will take a long time, those kinds of things. So with the House, it's a little bit different, but with the Senate, because there's 25 Democrats, there's 11 Republicans. We pretty much know what we're going to do as we get on the floor of the Senate.
Right. And I do want to get into the legislation that you passed this past session and in previous sessions, and stuff about what's happening here at home in Connecticut. But I want to change up the order of normally I would get into that first in my interviews, but I want to change up the order. As a prominent state level Democrat, you recently went to the National Conference of State Legislatures, so you're involved at the national level. In a way, you're a prominent figure. I want to talk to you more about the Democratic Party overall. So, the party, as you know, lost the House at the federal level and the Senate as well as the presidency in 2024. But a lot of people are attributing this loss to messaging from the Democrats. So, what is your response to what direction this party should go in? I know there's people from the further left of the party who are winning more and are more appealing to, for example, the younger individuals that are part of the Democratic Party. But I want to get your view on this.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably not an answer, obviously. I mean, I think that there was a lot of blame because uh, of inflation and the price of things, which I don't think really was Joe Biden's fault. I think he inherited a lot of that mess and tried to streamline it and work it out the best that he could. But you had this pandemic that was impacting everybody all across the globe. You had to undo this knots of the supply chain. People were trying to get back to work, get back to school. I mean, it was just like total disruption. And so you weren't going to have kind of a on-off switch. And frankly, I think a lot of it was the former president's, not Biden, but the other one, his fault for mismanaging the entire pandemic in the first place. But be as it may, people are always going to blame the incumbent party. But the current occupant of the White House did not get over 50% of the vote, so it was not a mandate by any stretch of the imagination. The House is and the Senate are about as close as you could possibly get without being tied. And so, I mean, I think that there's is messaging a part of it? Sure, messaging is always a part of it. Was it a lot of it was inflation? I think it was. Was some of it the candidates? Probably. I mean, in Connecticut, we expanded our majority in the Senate. We went from 24 to 25. The House increased their margins as well.
And we were one of the
So I
very
think,
few states to do that.
what's that?
I said we were one of the very few states to do that for the Democrats.
Yeah, absolutely. And but so I think that there's some things. Is there messaging issues? Yeah, but I would also say that we don't have, and this is a problem that needs to get fixed somehow. But we don't have a media ecosystem that people just glom onto. Like Republicans have Fox, they have OAN, they have Breitbart, many others as well. That's their echo chamber, and we don't have that. We have people who still read the New York Times, or they watch MSNBC, or they read the local papers, or it's just not one place where people get all the information. And I think, especially in the Midwest, that puts us at a disadvantage because a lot of the shows, a lot of the channels are owned by conservative media, one, and two, now you've got the social media companies that are now, their algorithms are going much more to the right. And that's a problem as well. So it's a little bit of that, but I would say at the end of the day, you've got to have better ideas. You've got to have better ideas. You've got to be able to compete. You've got to be able to talk to people. And if you're trying to, I think if you're trying to be all things to all people, you're going to lose. You've got to say what you stand for.
Right.
And what you got to be really, we always say the term authentic, but you really got to say what you stand for and what you mean, and mean what you say. And voters don't have to agree with everything you say all the time. They just need to know that you're being genuine about it, and that you're not, it's not some sort of like polled, tested response that you're giving. You're giving something because you really believe it's the right thing to do.
Right, and a lot of people have also pointed out stuff like that trying to get to everyone, which, like you just mentioned, it's impossible for any one person
Right.
running for office can do. For example, like the whole LGBTQ plus support that Democrats, kind of all Democrats ran with, that can alienate. If you go really extreme on one point, that can alienate some people in the Midwest, for example, who either, number one, may not understand that kind of policy, or may not care for that, right?
Yeah, I mean it's everything, and the thing is, the Republicans are a little more monolith than the Democrats are. We're a coalition. We have a big tent of various factions of people who don't always agree on everything. And I would say this, yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of the building trades and those folks have a different view on things than maybe somebody who's a Democrat from Upper East Side of Manhattan. But we have to respect the fact that our Democrats are a governing coalition. Republicans are much more monolith, and just kind of, there's not a lot of diversity in their ranks.
Yeah, and I think Democrats are also realizing. I saw on your Instagram you did a Texas Hold'em video. This ain't Texas. That was so creative. I really, really think
Thank you.
that's a prime example of how Democrats, are realizing and putting their creativity, right, and the messaging
Yeah.
to appeal to all people, the younger audience, etc. Because Democrats also, they historically have done a good job winning the younger audience.
Yeah, we want to keep it that way. I mean, there's nothing right now that the administration in Washington is doing to help young people. I mean, they basically said that they're going to get rid of their student loans. They're making college more expensive. They're making housing more expensive. Prices are up. It's harder for younger folks to be able to get ahead right now. So food is up. I mean, there's nothing that they have done that in a way that has done anything to solve the problems that they said they were going to fix. I haven't seen one of them fixed yet. I mean, in fact, the tariffs are affecting everybody, senior citizens, middle income folks, young people. And I think the young people are smart enough to see that stuff. They understand and they can do their research and they understand. Um, and again, that's why they want people who will, speak from their heart and try to solve problems. And we're trying to solve problems here in the state of Connecticut all the time. But you got to speak with a voice that is true to what you believe.
Right. And my last question, kind of on this note, as the majority leader in the Senate, your responsibility is to get people to vote, you get people to, in your caucus to vote with the Democratic position and rally people together, like we were just talking about before. With these new further left parts of the Democratic Party, like, for example, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders, these are federal level examples. If these kinds of people start coming into Connecticut politics, do you think that would pose a challenge to your job? Meaning, you being able to get people onto one position and appear united?
Yeah, and I just go back to the Democrats are a governing coalition, and now you have to work
Right.
on stuff. Not everybody needs to vote for everything, and sometimes you got to vote your district, or you got to vote your conscience, or whatever. If we don't have the votes for something, we're not taking it out. It's that simple. But I'd say in our caucus anyway, there's a lot of trust amongst everybody, and that I have rarely, if ever, uh, really whip the vote on something.
Mhm.
It's trying to just work it together, um, uh, as we all want to do to get things done and move it forward. Now, sometimes you want to go, if you have a particular bill, you may want to go from 0 to 100, but you may only be able to go to 20. And then next year you go from 20 to 40. So, that's just the way it works. That's why the legislature meets every year.
Right, and I think that's a very important position of leadership. Now, I want to transition from this. We see that this is another federal issue, and I promise we're going to get back to Connecticut in a minute. But we saw that in Texas, the state legislators that from the Democratic Party fled the state to block the vote on congressional redistricting. I know in Connecticut, we draw our congressional maps differently. They're outside of the hands of the state legislature. But as a Senate Majority Leader from the Connecticut State Senate, I wanted to get your view on what just happened in Texas.
Yeah, it's awful actually, because it again just erodes trust in our democratic norms and our system.
Right.
It should not have happened. And frankly, the whoever brought this issue to Texas's capital, the the leadership at the Texas Capitol should have told that person, no, we're not doing it. Because cooler heads should prevail on these kinds of things. And if you can't win with ideas, don't try to win by cheating. And that's basically what you're doing. You're winning by cheating.
And the move to leave Austin and break quorum. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I understand why they did it, because we want to look like you're fighting back. I mean, ultimately they returned back to the Capitol. And so we'll see what happens. But I'm glad that they made some noise, and I'm glad that they took a stand. Um, I think that this is more on the Republicans for actually proposing this, and for doing more to erode the confidence of the voters. I mean, they've done enough already. They have cut back on early voting, they've cut back on polling locations, they cut back on drop boxes. They've done pretty much everything they can to make sure that Democrats don't vote. And now they're cutting out all the congressional districts. It's absolutely awful.
Right. It's really going to be interesting to see how this plays out between blue and red states in the 2026 midterm
It's just a
election.
race to the bottom. It's a race to the bottom. That's all it comes down to.
And even with the concept, I think, of fight fire with fire, two wrongs don't make a right. We're all taught that since kindergarten. But anyways, you guys in the Connecticut State Senate at the state level passed the appropriations package because 2025, an odd numbered year, was a budget year. You passed a
Yeah.
2-year budget. It was $55 billion. You broke some of the fiscal guardrails, which I definitely want to talk about. But talk to me about going into this budget season, what some of your top priorities are, bringing our conversation away from federal drama back to the work for your constituents here in Connecticut.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And some of the drama is the drama over what happened at federally because there's a lot of holes that we're going to try and plug, even though we're never going to be able to plug all those holes. Um, I would say, for us anyway, is to try and bring back funding for our schools, bring back funding for our communities, fight for funding for our nonprofits, and other projects across our communities. And that's really what's important. I mean, thankfully, Connecticut has enjoyed a number of years now of budget surpluses. I've been there for many years of the deficits. Um, but we're trying, like in Norwalk here, we're trying really hard to advance a lot of projects. There's a lot going on here, and I think it's a good thing. But I think I'd say for any legislator, I mean, what they're trying to do is they're going to try and ensure that our schools are getting the help that they need, that our municipalities are getting help that they need because that offsets property taxes. That we're making key investments. Like this year, we did the first in the nation early childhood trust fund. That we're working on issues like energy. We're working on issues like that I work on consumer privacy, and that there's all that we're actually acting and getting things done. And I think that's what really matters.
But another big thing that came out of this budget process was that Connecticut, we had fiscal guardrails, what they call, on the budget process. We went over by $215 million for the first time. Talk to me about what that means long term for the state.
I mean, look, there's a lot of needs, especially post COVID. You see that there's a lot of need to help, and our ARPA money went away too. So people who received funding from ARPA, um, who were still clamoring, and that there's a lot of kind of promises that need to be kept with regard to our nonprofits that have been really underfunded for decades, our Medicaid reimbursement rate that's been underfunded for decades. We wanted to keep funding education, which is important. So, $200 million over a $23 billion budget is while it seems like a lot of money percentage wise, it's not going to break the bank.
Right, and I think it's an important perspective to have that some shifts have to be made. A couple of places where we have to cut costs. One of them includes something which I talk about on this channel a lot, and my audiences would be very interested to hear your position on it. Public transportation in Connecticut is something that isn't the strongest in the country, but it's definitely, we have a strong. I talked to Benjamin Nimmer, who runs the public transportation show at the Connecticut Department of Transportation. That episode's coming soon. We talked about the ways how we're going to balance fare increases with what's coming in from you guys in terms of the funding, since the department is funded directly by the state legislature. Talk to me about where these public transportation cuts are going to help elsewhere in the budget, since this is something that is important to people in Connecticut, but was cut this year.
Well, I mean, I would just say that the Metro North needs to be continuously funded, and we need to do more. The ridership is up, so that's good. So that helps. There's going to be a fare increase. It looks like that the DOT has proposed of 5% this year and 5% next year. I will say in Norwalk, we're not a community that has CT Transit, the statewide bus system. We had Norwalk Transit District, and I was able to bring in almost $3 million additional for the Norwalk Transit District because they were eating into their reserves by the Route 1 coastal link that is very, very popular, that runs from like Norwalk to Milford. And we were the only bus district that was actually paying that money. We put some funding in for microtransit, and we put some funding in um, to expand their routes. So because they did a operational analysis, and that's they're working off of a plan. So I know that there's it's what I'd like to see, which was very helpful in the past, was uh, free bus service or something close to that, because a lot of people rode that. I'm glad we have train service for students and provides them with an opportunity to ride back and forth on the train for free. Um, but we got to keep those things in mind. We got to keep those costs in mind. And public transit is very important, and people will take it if it's convenient and it's not too expensive. And so we saw that during COVID and with buses actually. And we need to continue to kind of go down that route.
Yeah, and I understand you were able to get some money for your district in Norwalk and the bus network, since, like you mentioned, Norwalk isn't on the CT Transit buses. But overall, public transportation, CT Transit buses in other cities in the state, because they run most of the buses here in Connecticut, did lose some funding. Why?
Yeah. I don't know that answers that question. Maybe it was because the administration wanted to build in a price increase for that. So it's hard for me to say. The North Trans District, for what I know, they may be going up in their fares as well, 5 or 10 cents. But it could be because the executive branch wanted passengers to ante up a little bit more.
I understand. Thank you so much, Senator. Now, I want to transition and talk about. I had the foundation director at the Connecticut Business and Industry Association up in Hartford, right by your office. Actually, the day I visited the Capitol, I went and got to speak with him in Hartford about job growth and the economy overall in Connecticut. The governor's job report that he created him. I'm sorry, the governor's budget actually showed no job growth for this fiscal cycle when he presented the budget to you guys at the state legislature. Is that concerning to you? And what are we doing to face this lack of job growth here in Connecticut? Sorry for being messy with that question.
No, let me see if I got your question. So if I'm not answering it, just let me know. I think actually Connecticut's we do have some job growth. Our numbers just came out the other day. We had job growth in July. Our labor participation rate is higher than the country. Ours is like 67%. I think the labor participation rate around the country is maybe 64%. We have a lot of job openings because there's a lot of growth out there, especially in the defense industry, and it has been for a long time. People are retiring. Our building trades people are retiring. We got to fill those up, but we also have to deal with housing as well because housing's so expensive.
Right.
So, I would say that we have got to do a better job on growing housing. I'm sorry, on growing jobs. But it's not, you can't grow jobs if you don't have a good transportation network. You can't grow jobs if you don't have good housing. You got to have a good education. So, all those things kind of contribute to a growing economy.
Right, we're making a lot of steps into growing Connecticut's economy. I think that number that I was referencing was the original budget proposal that Governor Lamont delivered to you guys that predicted little to no job growth for the upcoming 2-year fiscal
Yeah,
cycle.
I don't think that that's been the case, and I think like people were very concerned about our finances slowing down too. But um, we just found that there was a lot of additional funds that came in that we didn't know about. So our withholding is strong, which is a important feature from a standpoint of how are jobs going because the weekly paychecks. So the withholding is strong, and also our sales tax is strong as well. So people are consuming.
Right, and like you just mentioned, to get people into Connecticut and to be working in these jobs, help our job market grow, there are a few elements here. You just talked about sales taxes and housing. Housing is a big issue, and the governor, I believe, is planning to hold a special session for the legislature next month, if not the following. And one of the topics that you guys will be bringing to the floor will be having to do with housing. Talk to me about what the issues are with housing and how we're going to solve them.
Yeah, I mean, the governor vetoed our housing bill after previously signing off on it, but it was a disappointment. We're trying to get it together again and put it back together. We'll see if that happens or not, because we still want to vote for a strong bill. Housing is a huge issue for people, especially young people, but it's a big issue for seniors. It's a big issue for working families. So we've got to keep that in mind. We've got to get more housing in the state. You see in a lot of other states, especially red states, Florida, Texas, New Hampshire, Montana, that have passed very strong housing laws that are much stronger than what we have in Connecticut. Um, and ours is very tame and modest compared to those. But it's really important for us to pass these bills.
With this modest bill, why would Governor Lamont veto it?
Well, you have to ask him, but
Right.
he keeps saying he wants towns to take the lead, which we didn't prevent from happening. So I think it's better to frame that question to him.
Right, and we have to. So you're saying we have to pull the reins in on this bill even more?
He wants to. I don't. We'll see if that happens or not, or if we can kind of do the same thing with saying it differently.
So definitely, we'll be keeping an eye on that special session. Now, as we wrap up here, this interview, I'll let you go. I want to zoom out a little bit, and I just want to bring this back to what we talked about at the beginning about young people getting involved and change. Because to get a lot of these things done that we're talking about, whether it be budget, public transportation, housing reform, new voices have to be part of our government. So somebody like me, for example, what's the best way I can get involved in government?
And you could always run for office, for one. Two, you could try to become a staffer at the Capitol. You could go work in the executive branch and a number of different agencies. And if you have a certain passion for like the environment or energy or human services or something like that, education, you could work in those agencies as well. Could work in the governor's office, work the Office of Policy and Management, and kind of do a lot of different things at the same time. So I'd say depending on people's skill sets and depending on people's comfort level. I mean, not everybody wants to run for office, and a lot of people don't want to run for office. It's a very honorable profession, so I certainly encourage it. But I would say that most people kind of want to work on issues behind the scenes and they want to advocate. Now, you could advocate in government or you can advocate outside government. You could be a lobbyist. That tends to be a bad word, but you can lobbying for the environment. That's not a bad thing. Lobbying for um, consumers, that's not a bad thing. Lobbying for any number of organizations, not bad. Um, and that you're giving a voice to people who normally don't pay attention or may be too busy to be able to get up back and forth to the state capitol. So there's a lot of ways in which to get involved, and you really just have to kind of pick which you like best, what you want to do, what excites you the most.
Yeah, and on top of this new generation of young people being able to uh, bring change, like you just mentioned, do you think that since the Democratic Party has had most of the power in the state legislature for so long in Connecticut, that is an issue for new ideas coming to play and the bipartisanship of the state overall?
I mean, 85% of our legislation is passed unanimously. 95% is passed with a bipartisan basis.
Wow.
And that's most state legislatures, actually stats that are nationwide as well. So we do tend to work pretty well together. But I would say that we have put forward a lot of ideas as Democrats. And I think that the public has rewarded us with big majorities because we tend to do the things that they want us to do.
Right, definitely different than what we see at the national level in terms of the polarization. Um,
Yeah.
Last question I have for you, Senator Duff. You live in Norwalk. Your favorite Connecticut pizza. This is the hardest question of the day, I promise.
This is the most controversial, I think, right?
Right?
It really depends on what mood I'm in. I will tell you that, like, I'm not from New Haven, so I'm not going to go, oh, my favorite place is one of the New Haven places. I love, I mean, I could name you about five different places in Norwalk that I like. My favorite Greek pizza is East Avenue Pizza, and that tends to be my go-to all the time. Louis and George over at East Avenue Pizza are great guys. I love Colony Pizza. They're in Norwalk as well. Classica is really good. Also, Via Sforza has really good pizza, but they're all different. And even I like Jordan's. Jordan's is good. Um, so I mean, I'm a pretty simple guy as far as food go. I don't need really fancy stuff. I just like, something that's made good. And if it's local, it's great. So, it depends. Sometimes I'm like, I just want a thin crust pizza. I just want a colony pizza with some meatballs on it. And there's other days I'm like, I need that Greek crust that I can chomp on and I can have a little leftovers for the weekend.
You're making me so hungry, Senator Duff. But I've never tried Norwalk pizza, so that's now on my bucket list. Uh,
Absolutely.
Anything else you want to say as we wrap up here?
No, it's been fun. I mean, again, and I'm pretty reachable. So if any of your listeners want to reach out to me, feel free. I'm not on TikTok, but I am on Instagram and Facebook and Threads, LinkedIn. You can always email me. So I'm easy to find.
Yeah, super receptive. I got an email, I think, the next day after I reached out to you to have me on my show. So really appreciate that all over
My pleasure.
LinkedIn. This was Senator Bob Duff, the majority leader of the Connecticut State Senate. Political peeps, you know the drill. Peace out. Have a great evening.